What's going on, guys? Doc Danny here. I want to thank you so much for listening to the PT Entrepreneur podcast. One of the most common questions that I get is, how did you start a practice in a gym? And because of that, I've put together a course called the Gym PT Blueprint, which shows you exactly how to start, run, and grow a successful practice in a gym. If you're a new PT, if you're a new grad, if you're a PT that's just started a practice in the gym, you're not making more than $12,000 a month yet, this course is perfect for you. It'll teach you how to set it up correctly. It'll teach you how to market yourself correctly, how to sell correctly, how to actually build a true business and not just a little side business that maybe doesn't take you anywhere and change you and your family's life long term. So if you're interested in this model of a practice, guys, head to drdannymate.com/products and you can take a look at the Gym PT Blueprint and everything that goes into it at that location. Thanks so much for listening.
So here's the question. How do physical therapists like us, who don't want to see 30 patients a day, who don't want to work home health, and have real student loans, create a career and life for ourselves that we've always dreamed about? This is the question, and this podcast is the answer. My name's Danny Mate, and welcome to the PT Entrepreneur Podcast. All right, what's going on, guys? Doc Danny here with the PT Entrepreneur Podcast, and I'm excited to have another podcast veteran, I should say, and Shirokobrod on today, who's been podcasting longer than I have, which is awesome. I love the platform with the Therapy Insiders podcast, which is awesome. If you haven't seen it, take a look at it. All the UpDoc Media podcasts are really good. But Gene, man, so glad to have you on today. How's it going?
Go well, man. Danny, thanks for having me on. Really excited to talk some entrepreneurship, podcast, physio, whatever you throw at me, man. Really excited. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, when you say the word entrepreneur, I'd love to kind of get your definition of that. But I think you fit it really well because just kind of delving into your backstory here a little bit. It sounds like you've gotten involved in multiple types of businesses, not just straight physical therapy. So what I'd like to do is, if you can give everybody a kind of a short background history of your business ventures in particular, and what you've had, your hand in terms of, different physical products, locations, PT, and then digital stuff, because you're doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I think you're right on. I mean, a definition is critical. It's very much, it's parallel to being a clinician, and especially if you work with athletes, you have to define what an athlete is because the term means so much.
Right.
Very much the same in business, right? You say, I'm in business, or you don't know business. Without defining the terms, it means nothing, and it means everything to somebody else. There's too much variability, and if you know in business, when there's a ton of variability and you don't have consistency and control, you make up your own stuff and you lose track of things. So, and where I started was this mindset of all over the place. Like I knew I wanted to be in business. I knew I wanted to have some kind of ownership over something, but I didn't have a clean definition of that. And so I was a clinician. I was a physical therapist. I was focused on manual therapy. I was always gung-ho. I came out of school. Even before I finished school, I was a certified manual therapist. I went through this a year-long manual certification process, my third year of PT school. So when I came out, I was like, I'm going to be the best, right? I'm going to be the best. I had no clue what the best meant, but I knew I was going to be the best. And so I started practicing, and this idea of being the best quickly started to take a backseat to relationships, to connections with people, with patients. And I started to care less about how well I could do a manipulation or how well a technique I did. And I started to care more about the person coming in and saying, hey, man, I couldn't wait to come back and tell you about the softball game that my daughter had that we were talking about. I couldn't wait to tell you about this movie that we were talking about. And the more that this started to happen, the more I started to realize is I started to define what I really wanted, what it meant to be happy and fulfilled as a clinician and then as a business owner. And it came to the point of realization was that I need to scale my ability to help people, and I need to scale my ability to help myself and grow within a business. Once I realized that, that's when I really started to take the next steps. And it really, the first one was a physical product. In 2014, I got partner up with an engineer, and we developed a product for kind of neck pain relief and posture support and sitting, and created from scratch, created a prototype, 3D printed, and then went on Kickstarter. First time we put it out there, did no marketing, no anything, and still raised like $12,000. But our goal was like 25. So Kickstarter's all or nothing.
Yeah.
Kickstarter's crowdfunding, for those that don't know. People give you money, and then they get something in return. So then we kind of doubled back and reiterated a little bit, changed a few things, and kept in touch with the audience and jumped back in. And as soon as this is how I knew it was going to be successful, Danny. As soon as I submitted the Kickstarter, within like the first minute, we had pledges again. And
wow.
There was a comment by somebody that said, "I've been checking every day to see when you guys would be back on." And once I read that, I knew it would be successful. So then we raised like 30 grand in 40 days. Our goal was 20,000. We had like one of the first successful health/medical products on Kickstarter. And our goal was to fulfill, because like over 70% of Kickstarter products never get made.
Yeah.
So people just get the money, never do it. So I was like, look, we're going to get this made. But look, I've never made a product. I've never done assembly line. I've never done manufacturing. I've never done deals and contracts and shipping and all that stuff. So we had to figure all this out. And that's when I really figured out what entrepreneurship means, by doing. It's great to have this idea and it's great to have this feeling. I think that's what most people usually have, is like this feeling. I have this feeling of I know I can do better. Or I know I want to be rich, or I can feel myself being successful. I love this feeling of what success means. The problem is most people don't realize the other feeling of actually doing it and failing and constantly grinding. And then you really figure out what entrepreneurship means.
Oh, totally. I think the grind is you can't just read a book about that, right? Like you can't read a book and understand what it feels like to lose a substantial amount of money, per month as your business is starting, or you're in a growth cycle or something like that, and know that you kind of have to go through, some of this negative change in order to exponentially improve your infrastructure or whatever it might be. That's a scary feeling, right? But that's also, I love how you put entrepreneurship, and the way that you define it sort of is in your ability to actually, do things and experience that, because you learn so much from that. I don't know. What are your thoughts about that with entrepreneurship in school? Like, can you teach some of this stuff, or is it just, we can teach you some, but you got to really learn this the hard way?
Entrepreneurship isn't any different than any other aspect of life. It gets put on a pedestal for some reason, but it's not. It's the same thing as having kids, right? You can read all the books you want about being pregnant and giving and having kids. When your kid wakes up at 3 o'clock in the morning with a croupy cough, you can have all the medical knowledge in the world. That's not going to keep you from freaking out and wanting to go to the hospital. And until you live through that, when you have a second kid that happens with, then you can respond better, hopefully, right? And those are the keys. It's the moments in life that we experience. It's not the big stretches, because the big stretches are usually filled with fluff and nothing. It's how do you respond to the moments of great success and great trial. When you have those moments, those are really the keys that kind of shape the next trajectory that you're going to go on. And to me, that entrepreneurship allows that for more than anything else, aside from maybe having kids, because it's kind of like baseball, right? You always have another at bat. It's what do you do with that at bat? Do you let it linger? Do you think about the last strikeout you had, or do you learn from what happened during that strikeout, adjust, and go at it again, knowing full well that you probably will strike out again, and then you have an X amount of time to adjust to that. And to me, what really defines successful entrepreneurs from not successful entrepreneurs is successful entrepreneurs will track every single one of those and try to find a trend and a pattern to what's going on and analyze that data and readjust, versus always flying by feeling and emotion, because that leads to burnout.
That's a great way to put it. And I think the other common factor I've seen in successful entrepreneurs is they fail quite a bit, but what they do from those failures is learn. The good ones, they'll learn from it. And many of them will say, I'd rather fail fast in a new venture. Let's fail fast, and then, we'll readjust from there, kind of that lean startup model. For you, with at this point, now you've got, a couple different ventures, whether it be PTE location / gym, which is really cool, that everybody should check it out. It's Recharge, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Recharge.
Which I think is a really cool hybrid model, which, I think we could probably chat for hours, and we'll try to keep this focused. But between Updoc Media, what you guys have going on, your physical product, just a whole bunch of different things. How do you feel about your ability to, as an entrepreneur, focus on something and not get see that shiny object and then want to go pursue something else?
It's tough, man. It's always tough. I think once you realize the difference between selling a product versus running a business, then focus becomes easier via necessity. It's if you don't focus, and there's plenty of research that shows that you can't even multitask, right? So
right.
The way I do it is incredibly wrong, and I would never recommend it to anybody ever. But that's my brain kind of works that way. Every single venture that I've gotten into, to me, has to have some kind of carryover into something else that I'm doing. They're usually not worlds apart, and when they were, it usually didn't work out. So I like to have them in a similar kind of at least some kind of consistency to every venture that I get into. But my brain also works in that I need to be able to kind of turn off my brain in one aspect and jump to something else.
Yeah.
And let it recover. So that's just the way it works for me. But multitasking hardly ever works out.
It never works, right? It's just it's awful, and you almost have to be hyper focused in order to really get anything accomplished, man. And I don't know how people have so many like things open on their computer and they're like checking their email and then they're doing a presentation, or I almost have to be a jackass and completely close myself up. Well, I do have to be a jackass, completely close myself off, and everybody knows like don't go in if the door's closed, like Danny's working, and but that's the only way that you can really accomplish some of these things that we need to, and I'm sure you guys have gone through the same cycle. Now you probably get people wanting to get, I only need a couple of minutes of your time here on a bunch of different things.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, at this point, unless like I have a hard schedule, I remember how I was, and it's always like this balance. And people would always tell me like, well, if people want your time, you got to charge them for it, right? Your time is valuable. Charge people for everything. But on the other hand, if we're always talking like, well, we want to bring the next generation up, we want to bring the physical therapy students, we want to help them, we want them to learn business, and if we're always like, well, you got to pay me for that, then it's like, well, who are you? Then people don't really know your authentic self. So yeah, it's always like everything else. Like there's no absolutes, and it's always a balance, and you have to decide what you really want to do and what you really want to accomplish.
Well, I tell you, now that you've got all this experience in different types of businesses and things, if you go back to your physical therapy school and they let you teach a course on business entrepreneurship, what would be the main focus of that course? What would be like a slam dunk if you could get one class and have them for a semester or whatever? At the end of that semester, what would be a home run if they were able to do this thing?
Well, they actually did, so it's not too much of a theory.
Nice. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, so there's a couple things. One, I've kind of been doing it aside from just the PT school. I started a digital mentorship program with my buddy Jeff Moore, who's also a physio, and so we broke it into two parts. One, the business part, which I taught, and the clinical stuff that Jeff taught, just because it wasn't being done and we wanted them to have it. So it's broken into parts, right? The first part is really just the thing of what the heck is going to happen. Sugarcoating it's going to be great, you're going to make a ton of money, you're going to be successful. It starts like everything else with mindset, and it's teaching mindset, developing mindset, understanding that when you have certain thoughts, this is what this means, that you're not alone, that this is not unique to you. I promise you, things that you will be going and experiencing is not unique to you, even though it feels like it is in the moment. That's probably the biggest thing. And you know this with entrepreneurship groups. We're just hanging out and talking with entrepreneurs. When you meet another entrepreneur, and at this point, every time I say the word entrepreneur, I say it with some loathing because I think it's getting overblown. But
yeah,
when you meet somebody else that is in the same kind of life as you, it's an awesome conversation. Like, you don't want to stop, because it's talking with somebody that gets it on a level that other people won't, and that's incredibly it's a fulfilling conversation, which doesn't happen very often. So that's one thing, is teaching them that. The other big piece is psychology. Everything is about psychology, whether it's selling, whether it's buying, business, it doesn't matter. Psychology is crucial. The underlying base foundation behind everything that happens is psychology and behavioral change. So talk a lot about that. The foundation of entrepreneurship and the mindset, and then talk about the psychology, big important concept of psychology, and then just the nuances, of setting up LLC, setting up the difference between S corp and C corp, the importance of taxes, all these things that you will never learn, the nitty gritty of things that will just trip you up when you can't afford to be tripped up. And then finally, I talk about really the most important, crucial elements of entrepreneurship, of business even, which is team. Everyone always thinks, I need to have an idea. But that's the furthest thing from the truth. The idea is the third most important thing. And there was this really cool study, and actually a TED Talk by Bill Glass, I believe his name is, that is on YouTube. And it's team, timing, and then idea. So I kind of break that down. And the reason I've been able to do anything that I've been able to accomplish, which is still a work in progress, by the way, it's because of my team. It's the people that I've been surrounded with and totally trust. And then the timing, is the timing right? Doing a market analysis and figuring out everything that's going on, and really taking an objective look. And then finally, the idea. Does my idea fit in with my team and the timing of things? And then seeing how it can actually grow from an idea into a business, that's a big transition.
Oh, totally. And one of the things that you're doing seems like it would be very complementary to all of the other things that you're involved in, and that's your Updoc Media company. So the kind of digital marketing, web development, all the stuff that you guys are doing, that seems like that could fit with physical product, PTE location, digital, whatever it is that you might want to do. So how did you end up trending to the direction of wanting to do something in the digital media, digital marketing space?
Two ways. One was the product that I created, Arc, right? After we did the cool Kickstarter thing and did the manufacturing and fulfilled all our Kickstarter products, we were like, well, shit, we have all these products now we actually have to sell.
Sure.
So that's really how it came about. Is I started to read and read and read and read even more, and then practice and practice and practice and iterate and track data. And then I started to realize, then I started to see the trends in social selling, digital selling, spend shit ton of money on things that didn't work, kind of like more old school selling. And I was like, this cannot go on. And I started to really get into digital selling, and again, psychology of selling and connecting, and started to go at it and started to see sales really go through the roof. And I was like, okay, this can't just be for physical products. And I started to look at physical therapy, and Therapy Insiders came out in 2013, and that started to really take on. And kind of like you, people just kept asking questions like, how do I do this? How do I integrate this into physical therapy practice? And I had, the light bulb went off of, holy shit, why are we doing what physical therapy and medicine has always been doing in terms of marketing and selling? Why don't we look at other industries and how they're doing it? Because what they're doing is connecting with people, understanding people's problems, and meeting them there. See where the audience is and go to the audience versus the other way around. I was like, it just makes perfect sense, and that's really the kind of the genesis of Updoc Media through those two ventures.
I think it's definitely trending that direction. There's no doubt about that. I have a friend that has a social media company here in Atlanta, and they've gotten such good results for a plastic surgeon here in town that he actually had their company sign a basically non-compete. They wouldn't work with any other plastic surgeons in Atlanta because they'd gotten so many patients, clients kind of out of their efforts. And it makes sense, man. It's a natural transition, especially when you start looking at the infrastructure of content creation, images, running social media channels, digital marketing with email and ads, and how do you figure all that stuff out? So in terms of UpDoc Media, you guys have a lot of options, and there's a lot of people that listen to this podcast that are cash practitioners, relatively either kind of newer or smaller practices, and they may not have a huge budget to outsource everything, or maybe not even want to. Like, where are some of the best places for a younger practice to reinvest money in digital marketing?
Yeah, so when we designed UpDoc Media, we designed it with kind of that in mind.
Yeah.
Knowing that most of the people in physical therapy are very passive spenders. So it's tough to sell physical therapy, and you know this, that
totally.
Our community is very risk averse, and we know that, like, we're ingrained in our community, so we know the people, we know the conversations that we have. So we created like a month-to-month structure, anywhere from $250 a month all the way up to $2,000 a month, in which we do everything, and it's showing ROI. Yes, you're spending $2,000 a month on us, which seems like a lot of money. Most people say that, like, wow, that's a lot of money. We're like, well, if we over the next quarter, right, you'll spend $6,000 on us. You'll have a full digital footprint, a world-class digital footprint. We'll bring you, let's say, 40 people, 40 new patients over that quarter, and you need to know the LTV, your lifetime value of every patient. So we help with the metrics and bringing up the objective pieces. So like, if we bring you 40 people and the lifetime value of a patient is $1,000, you made $40,000. You spent $6,000 with us. That's a pretty good ROI, and it's not as expensive. So it's understanding those things. But if it's a brand new clinician, right, no money at all, can't even afford the $250 a month, we always say is you need to start with differentiating tactic from strategy. If what you're doing is throwing tactics at marketing or at clinical practice, then you're going to fail. You need to have a strategy, and a strategy is essentially laying out a narrative of beginning to end, and everything needs to flow together and go to the next stage. And it also needs to be tracked objectively. You need to have data points from start to end to understand success. And once you lay out that strategy for growth, then you can iterate within that strategy. Because if you have a tactic, the only thing you're going to do is throw that tactic away, start a new tactic, and start from beginning. There's no continuity. So we kind of help educate on how to develop a strategy versus just playing around with tactics.
How about the timing aspect of it? I mean, have you social media isn't typically, unless it's a lot of paid ads, going to turn around real quick for most people. It's sort of like that time investment up front. How much time do you usually tell people that are clients of yours coming on, like, hey, look, it's going to take a certain amount of time for your message to start to get in front of people, and for you to start to build relationships with them before you see, this obvious return on investment that they're hoping for?
It's usually 3 months. We've seen 3-month period of consistent content. It's almost to the dot 3 months. We've seen it every single time. Like, you get results fairly quickly, instantly with certain avenues like Google AdWords. You'll see it pretty quickly, usually local SEO when we do stuff like that. Yep. You see it come up in 2 to 4 weeks. But 3 months you see pretty good ROI.
Have you noticed any difference in terms of more qualified leads coming from social platforms versus Google AdWords?
Yes and no. Google AdWords will always be one of the better ways, because again, you kind of have to step back and think about the audience, not yourself, which is very hard, but it's necessary. Like, if you're searching on Google, what are you trying to do? 1, look at reviews, or 2, find a phone number. So it's a different type of lead. When somebody's on Google, they're usually ready to commit and they want to find you. So you want to be there. You want to be where your audience is again. On social media, a lot of times it's browsing, it's awareness. People want to get a sense of you. So that's why when we're talking about like Facebook or Instagram, we want people to create content, genuine content. Tell people who you are. Don't ask for shit. Just provide. Give people what they want, which is called outbound marketing. Just be yourself. Share yourself. Don't just constantly talk down to people or over their heads, or just take it down a notch. It doesn't always have to be about physical therapy or dentistry or whatever business you're in. Be a human. And kind of like the question I always ask people when they ask me about social media, like especially Facebook, like what should I post? Like what have you been posting? Well, I posted like a recipe or some picture or something like that. I'm like, let me ask you a simple question. If you saw this in your personal timeline, would you share it? If the answer is no, there's absolutely no reason for you to post this. If your mom saw this in her timeline, would she share this with her personal timeline? If the answer is no, there's no point in posting it because people guard their personal timelines. It's part of their identity. So if you're sharing just useless shit that they won't share, there's no point in doing it. The number one metric that we look at is sharing, because that means somebody sees so much value in the thing that you put out that they are willing to take action and share with their community and say, hey, look, I'm sharing this. That means this is something that I believe in. That is very powerful. If they're not sharing, if they're just liking it, that's not enough. Commenting is better, but you want to see the shares.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, well, that's where you get all that organic traffic anyway, right? And this is something that we've noticed a lot with popular blog posts that we have or videos, and it's interesting too. Sometimes it's not what you think it's gonna. You can think, man, this is gonna be awesome. People are gonna love this, and it doesn't work out that way. And then other things, you're like, let me just put this up. And then all of a sudden, it kind of takes off. Is there a metric that you guys look at for things you post on your social media page where it says, hey, this is getting a lot of traction. This is potentially going to be sort of viral in, local community. This is what we want to put money behind after you've already kind of put it out.
Yeah, definitely shares is the first one. We look at how often and how much people are sharing what we put out. We do a lot of videos. So videos, you look from the sexy metrics like views and likes down to some more of the kind of the nitty gritty, like 3-second views versus 10-second views, and kind of break those down, how long people are watching it. Some smaller ones like click-throughs, or people actually clicking on the video, even if there's no link. Sometimes people click on it. Mm-hmm. That means that they're willing to listen to it if you don't have subtitles. That's very important. Like, are people willing to touch it? Essentially, it's kind of like the Apple Store. Apple puts their products out in certain ways, forcing you to touch them. For the longest time, they made their employees kind of tilt the computer screens at a certain degree. You wouldn't be able to see them, so you're forced to tilt the laptop screen and touch it so you could actually see the screen. But once you touch it, you buy it, right? It's the psychology of selling. So similar things like that. We want to see, are people actually touching it? And that's kind of through click-through rates. Click-through rates are always important. Percentage of click-through rates. If we have a link, things like that. So we want to see the actions people are taking.
No, that's fascinating. I think that if you just learned as much as you could from Apple, you'd probably be successful in business.
That's the thing. Like, these companies are spending millions to billions of dollars on this. Just take a look. Just look at them. You don't have to do much. And the beauty of it's all out there. Yeah. Google has so much stuff that they give out for free if you take the time to dig through. But that's the thing. It's one, do you have interest in it? Do you really want to dig through it? And most people don't. They think they do until they actually start doing it, which comes back to our kind of original point is, once you're going through the grind, are you willing to continue?
Totally. Yeah, and in another great book, the Zappos book, Delivering Happiness, from a customer experience standpoint, like the amount of money they've spent on that and the success they've had with selling shoes online, which was a crazy concept initially. You can imagine, first time somebody said, I'm going to buy shoes online, I'm going to try them on. They're like, we could solve that, but it all came down to customer experience for them. And, if you're trying to figure out how to improve your customer experience, read a book written by people that built $1 billion business off of a customer experience, right? So I think that's hugely valuable. But, for you, especially working with all these kind of digital marketing platforms that you are, what do you kind of see as the biggest struggle that PTs have with digital marketing? Because I definitely get a lot of people that say like, oh, Facebook didn't work. It just took my money like a slot machine, right? I mean, and I'll usually say, well, Facebook works really well. You didn't use it correctly. So what do you see as the kind of like biggest struggles that PTs have with some of the digital marketing?
You pretty much just nailed it. It's 1, I don't have the time to do it. 2, I don't know what I'm doing. 3, I tried it once, it didn't work. Which all are valid reasons, right? But like for the third one, I always give the analogy is like, my wife went to Chick-fil-A once, got a milkshake, and got sick, and therefore all milkshakes were bad and she's not having another milkshake. So like, well, yeah, if you boosted a post on Facebook aimlessly and you didn't get the return, like, one, what return did you want in the first place? Well, I don't know. I wanted more patients. Well, yeah, no shit. But that doesn't mean boosting that post will get you more patients. So it's tactic versus strategy, right? That was a tactic. I'm going to boost that post so more people see it, and maybe I'll click, more people will click, maybe they'll call. They don't even think through that far. So that's one of the big things is that was a tactic. Step away, right? Figure out a strategy. So it's helping people kind of come through that. And then the timing and the skill of doing it. I always ask people, like, tell me about a patient that came in today. They go, well, like, I don't know. Did you have a low back patient today? Patient that has low back pain? Yes, I did. Did you give them some advice today? Yes, I did. What was the advice? Well, I told them to do some exercises. Fantastic. Take that same thing you told them, record yourself talking to a camera doing it, and put it out. Like, if that person came to see you and you took time to tell them something, obviously that was clinically relevant, important, and worth their time and money. Guess what? Other people will find that worthwhile as well. And, just helping people reframe and think differently, just like anything else.
That's gold right there. If you're listening to this, just rewind this like a minute and listen to that again, because that it's as simple as that sounds, right? Like, hey, just whatever you would tell your patients, do a video of that, a shorter video, I guess, of that, put it out. And that's exactly what we've found a lot of success with as well. And do you see issues with people thinking to themselves, well, if I tell everybody this, nobody's going to come and see me?
Yeah, exactly. And the obvious answer to that is, if you don't tell anybody, nobody's going to come to see you.
Right.
So it's not that hard. And there's other variations of that similar quote. And there's so many people that are not getting your services as is. Like, if you're worried, well, if I put this out there, my competition sees it and they'll do it. Guess what? Your competition is going to be doing it anyway at some point, so you might as well do it now. And you just kind of reframe your thought on competition mindset as well. We get this I'm sure you get this question as well, Danny. It's like, well, how are you better or different than business X, Y, and Z? And I'd love to hear your answer to this, but my answer is, I have no idea. I really don't know. I don't know business X, Y, and Z. Here's what we do. Here's what we do well. They might do it well as well. I really have no clue. You're here with us. Here's what we do, and I could tell you that for certain.
I think it's never a good idea to bash somebody else's business. That it doesn't do anything positive for us, right? It creates a real negative connotation to the conversation as well. I don't think we've ever, even if we thought that another provider was just maybe not doing the right thing, we'd never ever say that in particular to a patient. But yeah, for us, I think that you've nailed it in terms of the psychology of things. We never even bring it back to us. We bring it back to them as quickly as we can, right? Like, I want to know, dude, you're talking to me and you tell me you've had back pain for 20 years. Like, let's figure out what's going on with that and not worry about what so-and-so does, because, we help people like you all the time. So I think that's the best strategy, because it just, there's no win for that. You saying like, well, they suck. like that's a bad idea.
Yeah. And you establish, like you said, you establish the mindset of negativity right away, and that you can't come back from that kind of pathway. So you're absolutely right. And, then taking that mindset, my question always is to myself is, how can we scale this? And it's the same thing. When you have that one-on-one conversation, how do you scale that to a physical product, to digital content, to more patients, more customers, whatever your business is? It's take that same conversation and create a business persona or an avatar of the person. Hey, here's Larry, 50 years old, low back pain for 20 years, been sitting here, is very hesitant, has no real approach to going about it. Used to play football, has 3 kids, and you kind of list off these things. How do I sell to Larry? And then you create a message for Larry, and then there's going to be a bunch of people there. So like one of the big things, like when I lecture or present, there's really 3 buyer personas. There's 3 main categories of people. There's spendthrifts, there's average spenders, and then there's like, the penny pinchers people. And if you understand that and I'll send you the slide that I have if you want to post it on the website
Sure.
for people to see it, like that breaks down these three people, these three categories. Like once you hit which one of these three people you're talking to, you're able to kind of tailor the message to them, and it becomes even easier when you're doing it via digital because words matter obviously, and you can tailor your approach to these types of people, and it becomes pretty effective.
So is that similar to like psychographics, buying personalities?
Kind of. Those are even more specific. So you could take these three categories and then narrow into the buyer personas even more. But start with the forest, then go down to the ants.
Yeah.
So the forest is these three broad categories, and then once you know these three broad categories, you can narrow in down even more and be very, very specific.
Yeah, that's been extremely helpful for us, and most people listening to this, if you have a cash practice or out of network practice, whatever, the conversation is slightly different at this point in terms of somebody being referred to an in-network provider. And although it's changed, deductibles are so different, and people are just expecting in many cases to be out of pocket for certain things. But just having an idea of, okay, this guy's an engineer who works at Georgia Tech. Like this dude wants to know details, right? Like that's it. Like that's his personality. And then somebody that, I don't know, if I get an entrepreneur, most of them don't give a hell. They don't care about details. They just want to know, like, hey, I'm like really busy. How long is this going to take? What's the solution? All right, cool. Let's do that. Tell me what to do. Done. And the way you interact with those people is just completely different. And the way that first visit goes, really, if we can get that right, and this is something that we actually train with our employees too, is it just makes everything else, from there so much easier.
Yeah, for sure. And you kind of just described those three categories. So I'll give you a quick breakdown. We have three categories: average spender, tightwads, and spendthrifts. Average spenders, they're 61% of the population. They're most people. So they're data plus emotion driven. They're value influenced, but they love redundancy. And this is where social media comes into play. Is most people have to see something 8 to 12 times to follow through with it. And these are the average spenders, right? More than 60% of the population. So if you just stick to giving people data, somewhat emotion, but value influenced, you're going to get 61% of the people. And these are the businesses that do this well, and they never grow, but they never fail. They just kind of maintain, right? I'm sure you've heard this. My business just maintains. I've been consistent.
Sure.
Great. Because you're probably just focusing on average spenders. Spendthrifts are the buyers that everyone loves. 15% of the population. Highly emotional, highly visual. These are the people that are early adopters, standing in line at the Apple store, money in hand, the meme of Fry with his money, take my money. These are the people. Just take my damn money. I want it. I need this thing. I will pre-order. I don't care. I'm very emotional. I want this. The 24% tightwads are kind of what you described, the engineer. They are value driven and very analytical. These are the people they will buy based on loss aversion. So they will buy based on what they might lose versus what they will gain. And you kind of have to understand that conversation, right? You have to understand, like, well, these are the people that will always bite into buy now, or the deal's off, or save now, or time is running out. Like all these different gimmicks that are usually very annoying for us because that's not our category. We don't care about losing because we know, hey, there's going to be another deal, or this is just bullshit that you're kind of hanging in front of us. But people that will see this and go, okay, well, I've been watching this for the last 6 months, and I know that the price has been 30% more. And okay, I'm going to buy it because I don't want to lose out on this 30%. So these are the people that have been watching it for so long, and they finally saw it and they will buy it. So those are the three categories. And from there, you can, like you said, break it down even more.
Do you feel like your buying habits have changed since you've started a business? Have you started to put significant more value on your time?
Dude, I've become such an asshole buying stuff since I've started all this stuff.
Oh yeah.
I bet. Oh my God. Like you have to, whenever I get calls for pitches or people coming by, I'm just like, you have to do better. I appreciate what you're trying to do here, but you have to do better. I don't even go to their product. I break down their pitch. I feel sorry for people that call trying to sell stuff here. It's just brutal.
I had a guy do that the other day. It was for they said, "Oh, we're calling from the Atlanta Falcons," and I'm like, "All right, you're trying to sell me advertising in their, whatever, Atlanta Falcons booklet or some shit like that." And this guy, he calls up and he's like, "So, like we're running out of space, want to get you locked in." And I was just, at this time, I just really want to know what the hell their pitch was. So I was like, "Oh, cool, yeah, what are we talking?" And he was like, "Well, I can get you locked in for $20,000. I can throw in a few tickets for that, And I was like, $20,000, so $20,000 to be in this booklet. And he's like, "Yeah, it gets in front of like 150,000 people or whatever it is." And I go, "Man, do you even know what my business is?" And he goes, "Oh, it looks like you work with athletes," because the name of our practice is Athletes Potential. I was like, "We work with our motto is if you have a body, you're an athlete." So, we work with humans trying to live a high performance, pain free life. I was like, "You don't even know what the hell we do, and now you're asking me to pay you $20,000 over the phone? Like, I never even met you." I go, "How often do you convert?" Like, and I actually talked to him for about 10, 15 minutes afterward, and I obviously I didn't buy any ads with them, but I was just shocked at the fact that they thought they could call somebody that they didn't know and get them to buy an ad in a newspaper or something to that effect for $20,000 and not even know a lick about our business, So yeah, I would hate to call you too if I was that poor guy.
Yeah, I've had similar conversations with selling in a different store. Like we have a big store called Wegmans, big grocery store here. And we go shopping at Wegmans all the time, and we had somebody call like, "Oh yeah, I'm with Wegmans." I'm like, "Oh, fantastic," because we've gotten a lot of calls from companies like that once they kind of see what we're doing and getting in touch and just helping them out. I was like, "Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I would love to chat." And he's like, "Well, can one of my salespeople come out?" And then red flag, like, all right, this is not the conversation I thought it was gonna be.
Right.
So I was like, well, what is this about? Well, we want to, we have a magazine in Wegmans. I was like, first question, are you actually Wegmans, or are you somehow a vendor or something? Like, well, yeah, we're not really Wegmans. Okay. Thank you for that. Now, just in my mind, this conversation is going downhill in a different kind of burning wagon type of thing.
Yeah, it's so bad, and for me, the way I look at it, and this is kind of aside from, but in PT realm, I really wish that they would have taught us a little bit more of the psychology of kind of what you're talking about. It's us as business owners. I feel like we have to learn this stuff because it helps us grow our business. But I mean, think about how much better the outcomes can be, and just in terms of patient compliance and buy-in, if we were better at connecting with those patients that we have. And some people are inherently really good at this, other people are not. But just understanding, what drives them and motivates them, and just them actually doing their homework would improve their outcomes significantly.
Yeah, for sure. One of the coolest things I've done so far is when we made the ARC and did the whole Kickstarter thing, we sent in an application for Shark Tank. Just why not? Like it was like four months in, and we went out and pitched. So that's cool. It was one of the coolest things. Like there was 100,000 people there, and we had to distill a 10 minutes worth of information into a 60 second pitch. So we were there. We were like one of the first 15 to go pitch. It was like they set it up in a big auditorium, and it was like 10 black tent things. And so we go in, the producer's sitting there, very laid back, kind of gets you at ease, like, okay, show us what you have. Kind of talked about the product a little bit, and he's like, all right, guys, go ahead, let's hear the pitch. So we do our 60 second pitch, and he enjoyed it, and we talked about it a little bit more after that. But it was this process of distilling down to the essence of what your product is. And then we got a call back, so we went from round 1 of 100,000 people to round 2 of like less than 400 people. And so we had to then, make a video and show the product, and then just, we had a little bit more time. It had to be like under 10 minutes. And so then we got an email saying, really love the product, but because we were only like 4 months as a company, that we were young of a company, so we didn't get, because the next round after that is actually going to the show and pitching in front of the judges. So that was really cool. And they actually called us the year after that, like, do you guys want to, send in another video and do it? So we're like, yeah, we're still trying to decide what we want to do as a company, appreciate it.
Man, I feel like that'd be super nerve-wracking. Those guys can be pretty intense.
Deal.
All right, so here's the guys. Sorry, we've been getting cut off a little bit, a little tech issue, but I do, I want to ask you, Gene. I mean, you've had you've had a lot of entrepreneurial experience at this point. You've done a lot of different things. For people that are listening to this that are students, maybe they just started a business. What is one book you feel like everybody should go and get right now and read?
Oh, that's a tough question because I go through about a book a week.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I'll tell you what, 2 books. How's that sound? Let you do 2.
That's just
Makes it
instead
worse.
of both feet on fire, I only have one foot on fire. For mindset, obviously, like some big ones that a lot of people always talk about, Start with Why with Daniel or Simon Sinek is always a good one to, I think, get you excited and interested about reading books, period, because a lot of people just don't like reading business books. That's a great one. I really like Never Split the Difference. It's a negotiation book.
I've read that. That's good.
That's a fantastic book. Getting to Yes, another negotiation book, is great. Yeah, that's 3 books. So
That's good. 2 negotiation books, and then start with Why that's such a good book, man. Simon Sinek and Leaders Eat Last is another one that he wrote that was really good. Simon Sinek's awesome. All his stuff is really good. All right, guys. Well, hey, Gene, I appreciate your time so much today. And I know you guys have a ton of content. If people want to learn more about what you're doing and all the different kind of businesses that you're into, where can people, find out more about that and also possibly reach out to you guys if they're interested in working with you, in particular, Updoc Media? Yeah,
for sure, man. Appreciate that. Updoc, the biggest one. It's kind of the main hub. If you're kind of interested in the model that we do in Maryland, it's rechargexfit.com, which is physical therapy, CrossFit, some mindfulness. Then we do a bunch of stuff through there. If you have any questions, reach out. Twitter's usually best at Therapy Insiders because I hate emails. So Twitter is usually the best element. But yeah, Updoc Media or RechargeXFit.
Perfect. All right, guys, that's Gene Shirokobrod. Check him out on updocmedia.com in particular, and Recharge looks awesome. So get a look at that if you're interested in that kind of hybrid model. It's such a cool kind of approach that they're taking. So, Gene, thanks so much for your time, and we'll talk to you next time, guys.